When Bethesda celebrated their 10th re-release of Skyrim, they pulled out all the stops. They added fishing, farming, the bow of shadows, the fists of cuffs, and even horse armor. But more important than all of those, Bethesda finally heard my cries and added a hard mode to Skyrim. Can you beat Skyrim's survival mode without eating, drinking, or sleeping? Survival mode for Skyrim has been around for quite a while, initially as a mod for the base Skyrim that launched around the time of the last global conflict, and more recently as a microtransaction for Skyrim Special Edition. In my lifetime, it was made available for free in the Anniversary Edition of Elder Scrolls V. As the name implies, Survival mode adds many new exciting features to the Tamrielic wasteland to make the game harder. The big three additions are Hunger, Fatigue, and Thermometer. Not eating gradually increases your hunger, which reduces your total stamina, attack speed, and effectiveness of both sneaking and using shields. Fatigue is directly tied to your energy levels, the stamina of your soul. Sleeping. Not getting enough sleep lets some of the air out of your inflatable magic pool, makes you more susceptible to disease, and reduces your stamina and magic regeneration speeds. Potions lose some of their effectiveness as your colon starts to power down from a lack of sleep. The worm needs his nap. Luckily, the potions are not a problem for me because I'm not allowed to drink. That leads us to the third aspect, the drinking. I put eating, drinking, or sleeping in the title, but there is no H2O meter to keep track of. Pour one out for the hydro homies. Drinking is not relevant to this video. Up in its place comes the thermometer. Temperatures range all across the continent, from warm fires to the freezing skies atop the throat of the world. I will conquer it all in my birthday suit. The real challenge is, can you beat Skyrim's survival mode without eating, sleeping, or wearing clothes? Now there is more to survival mode than what I've mentioned. Just like in Oblivion, you can only level up by sleeping in a bed. So this is also the Skyrim at level 1 challenge. Why do I get the feeling I've done that before? Carry weight is reduced a tad. Health doesn't regenerate by itself over time. Animals out in the wilderness carry infectious diseases like rock joint or brain rot. Spending a lot of time feeling like will give you afflictions. You got a 55 on your test, but you were in a bad mood when you took it, so your teacher knocked it down to a 45 to send a message. And, lastly, fast travel is disabled. This sucks. Let's do it. I'm not racist, but orcs are objectively the best. Their indomitable stubbornness gives a small resistance to fatigue and hunger, and their thick, hunky skin keeps out the cold. I still froze to death on more than one occasion, so it's not enough to make a difference. Survival mode can't be enabled until you complete the tutorial, so that's where we are now. Out in the remainder of the game, I ran through my items, did a quick checkaroo of my skills to see where they'd be forever, grabbed the warrior stone out of habit, grabbed a few fish out of the water, and entered the first of 5 stages of starvation. I felt peckish. I could do for a couple Cheez-Its or maybe a nice pencil. The end goal of this challenge is to kill Alduin. That means following the main story to a T. As I approached the main gates to Whiterun, I began to feel tired. These are all the side effects of being tired, hungry, or cold. I'll still mention them as they come up, but I don't want to be giving out the percentages every time. I'm a man, not a calculator. Irilith spoke to me in a brave tone for someone in the presence of me doing this right now, and I got my orders from the Jarl to travel to the bleakest barrows in the land for a dragonstone. I gave my feet 3rd degree burns for the road, and set off for the mountains. No fast travel, I'm too poor for a horse. I picked a direction and started walking. A frightened woman ran up to me screaming for help. Sadly for her, I was already mid-swing by the time I noticed she wasn't trying to rob me. I finished the job. Witnesses aren't permitted. Not long after, I stepped foot in the snow. I started getting chilly, lowering my total health and slowing me down at the same time. It goes without saying until now that I'm playing on an Xbox. My quick save tendencies are alive, but they're not doing well. Quick save doesn't have its own button on the controller I can press. The ramifications of that are felt handily in combat. Slower attacks offer up a unique disadvantage against all foes, the likes of which you'd usually never feel. Regarding feeling, the cold is the only element of this challenge I can control. Underground dungeons are warm. Staying in one will slowly reduce your cold. That's not medical advice. Fires found roaming the countryside can warm you up. Drinking warm beverage will do the same. Flames, unfortunately, do not. But a handy-dandy torch most certainly will. I learned that last fun fact after the challenge was over. Deep in the depths of Bleak Falls Barrow now, I killed the big goth mommy spider, shot Orville down, retrieved his journal, and fought the Draugr. Unable to sleep and escape the nightmare of normal difficulty or restore my health, I relied on a healing spell to restore my health during the night. That wasn't enough, and Breaking news. Neither are the choppy death blades. I usually lock them behind me with this gate. That didn't happen this time either. One followed me deeper into the cave, but he lost interest after I ran through another set of death blades. I have buckets, don't think I didn't. After breaking into the Draugr Overlord's house and taking the words out of his books, I swapped over to a longbow and arrow to attack him safely from a distance until his health was gone. Pulled out a hammer, lights out once again for that guy, and I'm headed back to Whiterun. In the chest at the end of the dungeon, I found an amulet of Talos that reduces the time between shouts by 20%. Worthless to me now, but it brings up the question of what to do about armor pieces that provide no warmth. I wore them with pride. Considering all the ways I'm trying to keep me down, I'll happily accept any help from the game I can get. Most strategies I'd fall back on in a moment of panic, like power leveling my enchanting skill in Dawnstar, or making potions capable of crashing the game, I cannot use. Hell, even my beloved vegetable soup that gives stamina and health regeneration for 7 minutes is tragically out of reach. In lieu of a reward, the city's overseer sent me and a detachment of his royal guard to fend off a dragon attacking the towers west of the city proper. He did give me armor though. That improves my health. That backhanded gift is gonna come back to haunt him later in life. My hunger pains entered stage 2 as I neared the tower. Shields have lost half their use. I attack with 1/5 the enthusiasm as I did 45 minutes ago, and my stamina and magic regenerate slower than a dead pig in shit, and now I'm famished. The guard in the tower did some damage while the soldiers I came here with sacrificed themselves against the dragon, allowing me to steal the dead guard's bow and fire an arrow to kill the dragon in his memory. I sold the bones to a cat near Whiterun. The Jarl thanked me for saving his town, and with my favorite donkey by my side, I was off to scale Mount Incredibly Unstable. The 7,000 steps up the mountain offer a safe, if boring, path to the Greybeards. I opted for the scenic route, up the snowy, tree-infested, teeth-shatteringly cold mountainside. Attack speed has taken a significant hit, despite me being nowhere near the temple. As the icy winds took hold of my bones, every inch of my body went numb. This is stage 4 chilliness. I continued jumping up the mountain. Dying is just an opportunity to try again. Might as well see how far I can go before the machine that is my body runs out of quarters. Persistence in the face of certain death paid off. It was the winds that died. The blood flowing through my veins started to defrost. It was the sun's love that warmed me up. That's a lie. I can't think of any other time the freezing cold f***ed off for no reason without taking my life with it. After what felt like days of adventuring in the mountains, I arrived at the very steps I'd been avoiding, and I was not in the mood for anyone's shit, including mine. If you're not a fan of bad news, you're gonna hate what I'm about to say. 1 hour, 57 minutes into this challenge, the world went pink as my body entered the starvation stage of hunger. This pinkish hue took over the screen and never let it go. Lydia greeted me from inside High Hrothgar. I met the Greybeards, learned how to use the sentence enhancers I saw written on the wall in Bleakfall's Barrow, put on one of my first affliction shirts, and was headed across the continent to Ustengrav. Not 200 steps down the mountain, calamity struck when my game crashed. While I can't fast travel, I can still ride the carriages from town to town, and Dawnstar, home of the all-you-can-steal chest, happens to spit me out closer to Ustengrav than any other location. Inside that chest, I found 3 items never before seen in Skyrim: backpacks. These modern marvels are additions brought to you by the anniversary update. I got the one that itched my back, gave enchanted armor to Lydia, and braved the tundra. The closer to Ustengrav I got, the colder and colder I felt. Sprinting is gone now. I can't do that now. The blizzards got the best of me. I could barely see, but I could make out that the end was coming like a freight train. In my closing moments, I tried to cling to Lydia for a bit of warmth. She spat my love for her right back at me. Resurrected, still stuck in this white hell, and found heat in the form of flame in a dismantled house. Ustengrav was just over the hill. Lydia could have thrown my empty backpack into the hole in the earth if she tried. It was that close. Inside, the cold melted away, yet my lack of sleep continued to wage a cold war against the only way I can heal myself. Health doesn't regenerate. I can't drink potions or consume anything. I can't sleep. I can't level up for an instant health restore, and once my magic is gone, I can't use healing spells to restore my health. I'm not defenseless. I'm debilitated, addled, and frostbitten, but I have a torch, equipped for the purposes of enhancing my sight and warming up my fingies. Seeing in the dark of a dungeon in the daytime without a torch is not at all easy. I pushed through that to learn to become My Name is Earl Shout, and I just have to whirlwind sprint through these gates, and I can't. Sweet. And I'm out of save space. Sweet. Took me a minute to figure out how to solve that problem. Skyrim's only got about 7 gigs available for save data, and Skyrim save files grow faster than cancer. Delete a few saves and you're good to go. As far as the sprinting through the door, that was a timing issue. I had the note to meet Delphine in my possession, the sun was smiling on the cracks in my skin, and I, with the connection between my brain and spine hanging on by a thread of nerves, returned back across the world to Riverwood to find the journal this note came from. Here I used all the pre-approved tricks I could think of to survive the elements, including making friends with the inbred folk living in the void between settlements. He was all bark and no bite until I became comfortable. That made him mad. He sent Lydia to Mars, and I found myself in a familiar situation. He couldn't fit inside the tower, so I was safe for the moment. Miles away, in Riverwood, Delphine handed over the horn of Jordan von Strangle and invited me to join her in stopping the dragons resurrecting across Skyrim. First stop, way up north to Kyne's Grove near Windhelm. Now, completely out of both magic and stamina, I hired the carriage driver to lift me from town to town. The air around these parts is treacherously cold. I could spare no time. I opened fire on the dragon the instant he appeared, jetted over to the left and pumped him full of arrows while Lydia did what she does. My health is low enough that any amount of his burning breath touching me is a death sentence. One killing blow later, Delphine saw my true form and said we should discuss things further back at her place. Greybeards do need their horn back, but I've got half a dozen trips up and down that mountain in the not too distant future. I can give them the horn just before I head up to meet Parthenax. In an effort to reduce the time spent traveling to objectives, I purchased a living horse with all the fixins. The elven glass acted as a natural repellent, keeping my cold and his warmth as two separate entities. Delphine's second step in stopping the dragons is infiltrating the Thalmor embassy, and that kicks off by meeting Perth in Solitude. The horse brought some confidence back into my spirit. I didn't waste 50 gold on riding to Solitude in comfort. I just spent 30 times that on a horse, and I'm damn sure gonna get my money's worth. In the Winking Wabbit, I met with Malborn and gave him my equipment. The necklace of shouting, arrows and bows, swords, a shield, a hammer, and a ring I wore for style points. As for the embassy itself, my goodness, I cannot for the life of me remember the last time I spent an hour in this godforsaken place. One advantage I've got is the cork bulb arrows. These projectiles are one of the many minor additions to Skyrim from the Legendary Edition. They lack an in-game description, but they do damage over time that isn't one of the elements or magic based, so it's probably poison. I could have used poisons on my weapons. Way to plan ahead, me. It's dark as hell in the embassy's back rooms, and my health, in case you forgot, doesn't regenerate. And the first conflict left me with, I shit you not, 0 health. The shiver sent down my spine from being given a funny look is more than enough to end my life. What's the tactic? Simple. Attack the wizard with an arrow, run back inside to reset the area, go back outside where they're no longer on the hunt for you, take a shot, run inside, rinse and repeat until they're all dead. Same general idea in Ellenwind Solar. But there's a roaring fire in there, keeping the cold at bay. My health could recharge ever so slightly while I was inside. Beneath the solar, in the torture chambers, the torturee was set loose to cause a scene while I pursued Ellenwind's little black book for Esbern's phone number. I didn't find that, but I got his address. The soldiers don't have bows, only swords, so I jumped up to the rafters and attacked from there where they couldn't reach me. With the job done and the party at crime scene, I escaped through the cave and once more braved the great outdoors. I moved too quick, with too much purpose behind each step. Another crash put me back in my place. Back in Riverwood, a courier barrel delivered me a message as a pair of cultists followed me into the Ragged Flagon looking for a dragonborn to kill. I hid in Delphine's room while the barkeep, Lydia, and other poison fans got their torn up by the masked men. The barman died doing what he loved, screaming, on fire. We were only indoors for a moment. The large D sent me to Riften to hedge our bets on Esbern being the key to stopping the dragons. Sorry, gates closed. Go get 15 more stars to unlock the door or use deception, mind games, lying, and a hint of truth to get on the other side of Esbern's door. He's a magic man with a make-believe wife who shoots fire from her hands at anyone coming for her most recent husband. I, on the other hand, made use of my temporary invincibility shout to navigate through the Ratway. The Become Diethyl Ether shout turns you into a ghost, freeing you from most forms of damage in Skyrim, but it also alters your vision for the duration of the shout, making it a perfect way to get around in the dark. The long-lost lovers were reunited. Esbern reminded us about Alduin's Wall, where he checked his height when he was growing up, and Skyrim's favorite power couple plus me and my third wheel and a horse all rode out to Markarth. Way out west, beyond the Badlands and the Yellowstones, is Karthspire, now a segment of land space being occupied by Forsworn warriors and a dragon. I slit my hand's throat to unlock the dragon blood-sealed door, and upgraded my donkey to a bona fide jackass. Esbern rambled off about the shout used to defeat Alduin centuries ago, when titans and myth were flesh and bone. Delphine just wanted to fit in. Here's that trip back up to the Greybeards I nonchalantly teased earlier. The trip itself kicked off with Dad backing over one of the gardening claws I left in the driveway, puncturing a tire and his spirit. We've got a spare, but it's under all the f***ing luggage, and now all the magic from the trip is gone. What am I saying? Let's go back. I tried to run my horse into Sky Haven Temple. Horses don't go into buildings, so I jumped off and ran inside. When I went to get him back, he was right where I left him, about 8 feet into the loading zone. He's right in front of me, but out of reach. However, He is my trusted steed. If he sees my face about to become paste, he'll know it's time to start trotting. I only needed him out for a bit, just enough to grab the saddle and straddle his back with my crutch. Somewhere a mistake was made. I'm talking about the uninhabitable zone. Like the part of Michigan you can't point to on your hand, the far-off reaches of Skyrim aren't meant to be accessed by anyone. Unfortunately, I couldn't set my boy free. I abandoned him and set off for High Hrothgar. Before starting the first of many trips up the mountains, I hired the Whiterun carriage to drive me to Dawnstar so I could loot the ground chest for last-minute supplies. Riding the carriage freed my horse from his trap, and we started Mountain Trip 1. I'm counting going up and coming down as 2 separate trips because of how time-consuming they are when you're as stubborn as an ox. I'm bitching. It's less than 10 minutes up by way of steep cliffs and magical flying horses. We're a bit out of whack with the main story. I've just now returned the horn to the Greybeards and been welcomed into their club. We're caught up. Arngeir and friend inscribed the Clear Sky shout into the ground for me to absorb. I didn't need it. I had a horse, but I cleared the first one to ensure jumping ahead in the quest objective wouldn't screw up the timeline. Parthenax is waiting for me atop the mountain. This is trip 2. Oh yeah, I'm that petty, and I have every right to be considering Parthenax wants me to find an Elder Scroll. And where is the Elder Scroll? Say it with me, class. The Dwemer Ruins. Septimus Cygnus holds the Cube of Influence in his igloo north of the College of Winterhold. One could arrive at Alfland early. You don't need specialized equipment to descend down into Blackreach, but, as we learned back when I misled a million people in my Skyrim Ditto video, you do need the cube from Septimus Cygnus to unlock the Elder Scroll. So I found him, tucked away in his hole in the ground. I got his help and found Alfland. A cave is no place for a horse. I left him sitting on the old raggedy bridge about 60 feet above ground. Horses are notorious for being light on their feet, and very cautious when things go awry. In the Dwemer Ruins, I continued relying on the ethereal shout to both protect me as I ventured deeper and deeper into the ruins and enhance my vision to that of a near-blind person. What the shout doesn't protect you from is the brain rot you get from being sliced up by the spinning fan blades. Don't with fan blades. Back in 2020, drunk Paul tried to play with a fan that wasn't wearing its shell, and now sober Paul has a scar on his arm from a f***ing fan. Brain rot, at the moment, doesn't have any effect on me. My magic is in the negatives now. Getting through the Thalmor to the entrance to Blackreach took multiple attempts. I can't sprint or heal. The wizard blasting me with Arctic wind killed me. I had to time the shout just right to be rounding the corner to the stairs when it wears off. Quick save on the ledge behind cover, shout breath again to more stairs, and like voodoo magic, you're in with the mushrooms. Lydia tricked me by meeting me inside the Elder Scroll chamber. She was nowhere to be found in the Dwemer Ruins, but here she is, safe and sound. I made her kill me for that. Then I retrieved the Elder Scroll and was headed back to the throat of the world to read it, except I needed my horse back, and he's way the f*** over there in the mountains. During the playthrough, I forgot that spending time with the carriage driver would make mine jealous and bring him back. I froze to death. 1, 2, become ethereal doesn't prevent starvation, 3, 4, almost 5 times in my effort to get back to my horse. I had to spoon with a lantern in my least favorite place on Earth just to not die. Got my horse back though. The next hour or so is a lot of riding from place to place to place to place to place to place. I'm going back to the throat of the world. He sends me to the Greybeards, who sends me to the Jarl, who sends me to the Greybeards, who sends me back to Solitude and Windhelm, who sends me back to the Greybeards, and don't you forget that there's no fast travel. That's a lot of ground to cover. You all know good old me pretty well. I'd never complain about this sort of thing. I have the patience of a Saint Bernard, but I will say this. You thought it would be something negative. No. In a rare twist, here comes some positivity. The weather effects added by survival mode might make Skyrim worth replaying. I didn't have any hot soup or clothes to warm me up, so getting to any place out of the cold felt like a win, whether that be an inn on the side of the road or an army camp. I lied to you just now. Here's the twist. I'm pretty cold. Not frostbit or numb, dangerously cold. Upon reading the Elder Scroll at the wound in time, I dropped dead. Wasn't sure what to do about that. I didn't really have a backup plan. At first, I used the order of operations to sacrifice the least important aspect of the challenge first. That which doesn't lie in the title, clothing, or me. A warmth rating of 90 didn't provide enough protection to save my life. I formulated a plan on the fly. Reload a save from High Hrothgar. Put on clothes before going upstairs to Parthenax's room, be less cold when I get there, and survive the reading of the scroll. It kinda sucks, but I'm still starving and so sleep deprived I'm hallucinating that I'm dehydrated too. From a healthy hallucinogen I got from a book, I learned how to scream a dragon out of the sky, and left my clothes on, don't ask me why. Lydia, Parthenax, and horse worked on Alduin up close while I dinged him from a distance. Together we defeated Alduin. I died not once, but 0 times to Alduin. I already told you about the big back and forth to set up the peace treaty. Who I assigned to doesn't matter. Skulldafn, the last great barrier between me and Sovngarde. Restless Draugr, puzzles, and even a dragon priest tried to keep me from entering my rightful kingdom. I made it to heaven, a magical place where unpleasant feelings like cold, hunger, and exhaustion do not apply to anyone except me. I can't feel my stomach screaming, but rest assured he's still screaming his head off. The fire breath shout did far more damage than any individual weapon I had. It defeated Soon for me. I summoned the 3 heroes, and together we battled Alduin one last time. My shouts acted as a glue trap for his soul, keeping him on the ground while the 3 ghosts slowly but surely drained the life force from his body. I fired the final shot right between his scales. That's cool, but a rock plummeting from super heaven will kill me if it lands on my head. Alduin's been slain. The Eater of Worlds is no more. I went back to starving to death and beat Skyrim survival mode without eating, drinking, or sleeping. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Thanks to the champion tier supporters as well as other channel members for making videos like this one possible. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server by going to mitten.land. Follow me on Twitter @MittenSquad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.